Gravitas is a puzzle game, short but sweet and with a touch of comedy thrown in. If you told me this game was made with no influence from the Portal games, I'd eat my shoe, because to me it feels a lot like a freelance off version of Portal. It was made by Galaxy Shark as part of an SMU Guildhall project, notably the same place the game Tex-Mex was made at. The basis of the game is that you have come to an art gallery, otherwise known as the Gorg, made from cubes and gravity that sits in the middle of space. The loading screen is simple and gives a taste of the colourful graphics the game has to offer. It also gives you a taste of the motion blur, which can be a little sickly, but luckily can be turned down in the settings on the main menu. I did that, then jumped into the game. Immediately I also noticed that your walk cycle is slightly jaunty, and you sway side to side a little. I can imagine with high motion blur that might not be the tastiest of experiences for people who get motion sick, but it wasn't too bad for me once I got into it. You dock your little spaceship onto the gallery, hearing some jazzy background music reminiscent of the radio noise from Portal in the background, and exit into a lobby area where you hear an automated voice, the voice of She, and the voice of your facility guide. Both of these voices are very well acted, She being automated and a more functional robot, and your guide being a bit more eccentric of a robot. He gives me strong Wheatley vibes from Portal 2 in terms of personality, but has a slight touch of the GLaDOS in there as well. Your guide's name is the Curator, apparently, according to him anyway. The beginning segment very quickly seats the comedy in the game, with the advice that you can't take any photos or commit arson in the lobby. You're introduced to the controls quickly once you pick up your gravity manipulating glove.
I call it the
This allows you to create a gravity tunnel that pulls you toward whatever wall you created it on. Again, if you've ever seen Portal before, this might look a little familiar. The other controls are just WASD to move, shift to sprint, which I don't think I ever used, and space to jump. When teaching you the controls, there was a nice little fourth wall break moment where She gave me the button, but the creator had tried to explain it with a kind of nudge nudge wink wink method. Each room has a name, the first one being Ascension. The name is on the tin here, and you have to climb the tower whilst the creator watches you look at his art. You also get introduced to the cube mechanic here, as you can drag cubes around with your gravity fields to get you where you want to go. From there it becomes more like Portal, where despite being told this stuff is art, you're basically trying to puzzle your way to the other side of the room, when you figure out where that is. There are 5 levels, each getting a little more complex as you go along, and introducing things like lasers that can kill you. You get Barthola Cube in one level, your oversized companion cube that can block laser beams for you, and in other levels you just get a lot of cubes, which help you fondle the crannies of the puzzle. I only really struggled a little at levels 4 and 5, one having introduced a cube that you could make gravity fields on, allowing you to pull yourself or other objects to the cube rather than just pulling the cube around. You could also smash glass at this point too to reveal new areas to operate. I like the way all the bits and pieces combine, and the lasers were used in a good way to stop me just surfing levels on top of the cubes. Plus the fact the cubes don't just slide in a straight line, they can bounce around a lot sometimes, so you're never fully comfortable sat on top of them. There are a couple of flaws worth mentioning though. This game is another one where for some reason my mouse cursor was still sliding around my desktop behind the game window. Now, because my recording software works on a frame around the screen, anytime my cursor hit the far edge and I tried to click, the recording frame would change size and overlay. Then I had to stop record, pause game, reset the recording, and run again. As a result, my footage may be a bit choppy, and this did cause me a lot of frustration. It's no fault of the game that my recording software works that way, but having the cursor still moving around whilst I was in-game was not the most helpful of things. There's also a little issue with lag sometimes as well, where you'll turn and the game will catch slightly, but I had the graphics settings on the highest possible, so it may just be a case of lowering them to stop that. It didn't have much bearing on the game overall though. During your puzzling, there's a background narrative going on, where the place has been disused or ill-maintained for a while, so it's a little rusty. There are multiple alerts of potential reactor core melts, and eventually you reach a point of having to jump ship before the place goes up in flames. You use all your puzzling mechanics to work your way out, and skedaddle out into space with all the debris. Overall, I racked up an hour running through the game once, with a few slips here and there, and the story opens and closes itself very nicely. As said, it does ring strongly of the Portal games, even as much as giving you a similar motivation to escape the place as there was in the original. But whilst there are a lot of similarities, there's enough creative difference and effort put in to appreciate. The character dialogue was well written and very well voice acted. The sound effects and level designs were good and unique. The smash glass mechanic and gravity-able cubes were not features of the original, so there's a new concept involved there. And the whole experience was enjoyable from start to finish. The comedy kept running in the dialogue and the background, the light tone staying all the way through as well. Factoring out my own faux pas with the recording software, there are some minor jinks in the motion blur and spots of lag here and there, but there's no downfall to how the game feels to play. The controls aren't heavy and things work how they're meant to. It was obviously fairly short, but it gave you a good view of the capabilities the creators had inputted and gave you enough story to run with before closing itself at the end. I'd recommend giving it a try for an hour of your time. There are achievements to get that might warrant a couple of run-throughs, so there is a little more to get out of it if you want. All in all, I would give Gravitas an 8.5 out of 10.